Hello, and welcome back, adventurers. It's good to see you again. Today, let's learn about our health points, what happens when we run out of them, and about our other combat resources. If this is the first video in the series that you've come across, and you don't know anything about DC20, why not start at the beginning of the Let's Learn DC20 playlist here? Let's jump in. Health, hit points, HP. I'm sure it isn't a foreign concept to most, but they're the funny little numbers that determine how alive you are. The more HP you have, the more of a beating you can take before you're knocked out or outright killed. To work out what your player character's health is, just follow this simple formula. You have a base HP of 4, then you add twice your level, add your might, and your agility. You can also gain additional health from your class or ancestries. Different classes will gain different amounts of health at certain levels. So for example, the Barbarian gains extra health at every level. And on the other extreme, wizards don't get any extra health at all, with every other class falling somewhere in between. So the range of a player's health at level 1 could range from 5 in the worst possible case scenario, to about 15 in the best possible case scenario. For a reference, a commoner has 4 HP, a large dog has about 3, a cat would have about 2 health, and rats would have 1 HP. From my own experience of playtesting DC20, at level 1, on average I was dealing about 2 to 4 damage with a single basic attack. But I had seen someone get a brutal critical hit and deal something around 10 damage. Yeah, the goblin wasn't very happy about that one.
Please don't swing your sword, I would die to just one attack! Oh, I only have 3 hit points, please! I'm a little goblin!
When a creature's health reaches a specific threshold, you'll gain a certain status. When you're at half health or lower, you're considered bloodied, and if you're at a quarter health or lower, you're considered well-bloodied. As well as having some mechanics that only affect creatures when they're bloodied or well-bloodied, it's also a great way for a GM to let their players know how much health an enemy has without outright just saying how much health it has. Oh, it's you again, my old nemesis. Your reign of terror ends here. Any last words?
Do it!
Very well. Take this! Right, where was I?
Wait, he isn't dead! Shy surprise!
What? How? That's impossible!
Nothing is impossible!
Oh, right, you're on Death's Door. I'll let another me explain about Death's Door. Well, I'll deal with this. Come here, you. Death's Door is a mechanic that only applies to player characters. When a PC's health is reduced to 0 or lower, you enter Death's Door. You immediately gain 1 level of exhaustion. Exhaustion is a scaling condition where you gain penalties to all checks, saves, your speed, and save DC, where they're all reduced equal to the level of your exhaustion. If you ever reach exhaustion 6, you just die. Your action points are also reduced to 1 until you're restored to 1 HP or higher, and at the end of your turn, you must make a death save. Roll a d20 with no bonus. If the result is higher than 10, you succeed and nothing happens. If you fail, you take 1 true damage, and on a critical fail, you fall unconscious, though you'll still have to make death saves until healed. And on a critical success, your HP is restored to 1 and you're out of Death's Door. A creature, including yourself, could take the triage action to try and stabilize a creature on Death's Door. Make a DC10 medicine check. If you succeed, the creature is stabilized. You no longer have to make death saves, but otherwise they're still on Death's Door until healed. A PC dies if their health ever reaches their Death's Door threshold, which is equal to 0 minus their prime modifier. So at level 1, it would usually be -3. So in this case, from 0 to -2, you would be at Death's Door. But the moment you hit -3 health, you die. When it comes to effects that cause continuous damage, like the burning condition, while you're on Death's Door, you no longer take the continuous damage. You still have the condition though, so once you're healed, you would start taking the damage again. Let's take a quick look at some of our other combat resources. We'll start with action points, since I just mentioned them. Players will have 4 action points, which are spent on actions, reactions, movement, and other features like maneuvers, attack enhancements, class features, and even ancestry features. Basically, anything you want to do in combat. Sometimes actions will cost multiple action points, like spells is a good example. You also have an extra minor action point. It's like a free action point that you can spend on things like picking up and dropping items, opening and closing doors, or drawing and sheathing your weapons. Things along those lines. You recover all your AP at the end of your turn. When out of combat, things get a bit more free-form and loose. When it comes to doing actions, anyway.
Just loosen up a bit, okay? Loosen up a bit.
I'm loose.
Okay, I just want you to be loose, okay?
I'm loose!
Outside of combat, you no longer need to spend action points. Just declare what you would like to try to do. If what you're planning to do would end up costing more than 4 action points, the GM would likely rule that it might take a bit of time before you could do anything else. Keep in mind that one round of combat is 12 seconds in DC20. Next, let's look at mana points.
Magic.
PCs with spellcasting or hybrid class features will gain mana points from their spellcasting mastery feature, which can be spent on spells, spell enhancements. Your MP fully recovers whenever you take a long rest, which basically means just after you get a good night's sleep. While out of combat, when you spend MP, the total cost is reduced by 1, though it can't ever go below 1 mana point. This is to represent you being able to take your time casting a spell, without the high stakes and stress of being in combat. We can dive deeper into mana when we cover spellcasting. Lastly, let's take a look at stamina points.
Next, side-to-side jumps for 30 seconds. Ready? Go!
PCs with a martial or hybrid class gain access to a pool of stamina points from their martial mastery feature, which can be spent on martial techniques,
It's all in the technique.
class features, and to be used in place of action points when performing martial maneuvers. Unlike mana, stamina is much easier to recover. You can regain stamina points during combat in many ways. Each martial class has a different way to recover stamina. For example, a fighter would regain 1 stamina when they perform a maneuver, whereas a barbarian would regain stamina when they are hit or being hit by a heavy, brutal, or critical hit. Another way to recover SP is to spend 2 action points, effectively taking a moment to catch your breath to recover some stamina.
Breathe air!
And when you're out of combat, your stamina is fully recovered. So, while out of combat, you can perform any action without fear of draining your stamina, as long as it doesn't spend more than your maximum would allow. To compare the two, mana has a much larger pool of points, with a base of 30 points at level 10 for spellcasters, but it's difficult to recover MP, with long rests being your most reliable method. Then we take a look at stamina, which has a much smaller pool of points, with only 6 points at level 10 for martial characters. But your stamina pool is always at the maximum when you come into combat, and can be used dynamically as you spend and recover stamina on the fly during combat. And that about wraps it up for today's lesson in DC20. With that, we've covered these parts of the character sheet. And if we take a look at everything we've covered so far, we sure have come a long way since episode 1. But there is still a lot to cover. Next time, we'll be taking a look at actions and reactions, and there's a lot to look at there, so I might be splitting that into 2 parts. We'll see. Now, do the subscribe, and as always, consume more content. Consume. 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 Bye.